Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks, Bob, for implying that I'm not a piece of beauty that was created by human beings. My parents will take an issue with this. Great, thanks for having me here. I probably don't have spend too much time convincing you that you guys are leaving digital footprints behind when using your smartphones and smart cars and smartwatches and Facebook, LinkedIn, or walking the streets and having your faces captured by the CCTV cameras that are hanging from every second tree, even probably here on the campus. But the question is, of course, how much of those digital footprints you are leaving behind. Does anyone know the answer? A lot. That's a correct answer. Thanks a lot. Back in 2012, which is a long time ago, IBM estimated that an average person is leaving 500 megabytes of digital footprints every single day. Now, to help you imagine how much data that is, let's have the following thought experiment. Imagine you wanted to back up just one day of data that the humanity used to produce back in 2012 on A4-sized paper, Times New Roman font, size 12, single-lined, double-sided, covered with zeros and ones. How tall would be a stack of paper that contains only 1 day worth of data that humanity used to produce back in 2012? To the moon, great, more than that. What's further than the moon? Sun, to the sun, yes, to the sun 4 times over. And it's just 1 day worth of data, and of course, we are quickly ramping up our ability to produce data and our appetite for data. Recently, The Economist estimated that in 2025, an average person is going to be producing 62 gigabytes of data every single day. Which brings me to this slide. Does anyone know what that is? Amazon snowmobile, that's amazing. Well, in America, when I show this slide, even before I finish my line, someone from the audience says it's a truck. It's a 16-wheeler, actually, I was told by my American students. What's on this truck? Data, great. Why would anyone ship data on a truck? Faster, great. Our ability to produce data is growing faster than our ability to send it over distances, but it's also safer. Data is really valuable because you can do extremely useful things with it. And this is why we see a proliferation of companies and organizations. They're set up explicitly on an idea of harvesting, collecting, generating data. Like in the past, essentially you had people mining, harvesting other natural resources. Now, why would they do that? Well, because it's valuable, you can predict things with this. And apart from those companies that are set up explicitly on this idea, you can see even traditional industries moving towards data-driven model. A good example is credit cards. Now, if you are American, you probably not only wouldn't have paid for, or we don't pay in America for our credit cards, but we actually are being paid for using the credit cards. Now, why would a bank pay me to use my credit card? Because I'm the product now. I'm generating data for the bank that is extremely valuable because you can extract a broad range of interesting facts from the data that I'm generating. Now the question is, what can be gleaned from my digital footprints? And I'm sure you can come up with many different examples. I'm a psychologist, so I'm focusing on what we can learn about a human psychology based on the digital footprints that people are leaving behind. And in one of my first studies, I used a very generic type of digital footprints, Facebook likes. We collected those Facebook likes from about 60,000 volunteers who also volunteered their questionnaire data about their personality, IQ, about their political views, religion, and so on. And we tried to see whether we can build those models, predictive simple machine learning models that can take digital footprints and predict those psychological traits. And let me show you a short video that summarizes the results.
Now, clicking like on Facebook is something most of us do without thinking.
The University of Cambridge over in London actually did a study
of what people like on Facebook to try to determine facts about them that they wouldn't otherwise know. So they didn't just look at the products, the movies, the bands that people liked. They also looked at the status updates that people liked, the photos that people liked, and they were able to draw some really, really interesting conclusions about
all of your likes that you're clicking can tell more about you than you might have realized, from your political values to your religion to your gender to your happiness to your age.
In fact, some parts of your identity can be predicted with 95% accuracy.
Accuracy was lowest, about 60%, when it came to predicting whether a user's parents were still together when they were 21. People whose parents divorced before they were 21 tended to like statements about relationships. Drug users were ID'd with about 65% accuracy, smokers with 73%, and drinkers with 70%. Sexual orientation was also easier to distinguish among men, 88% right there. For women, it was about 75%. Gender, by the way, race, religion, and political views were predicted with high accuracy as well. For instance, white versus black, 95%.
The findings have alarmed privacy campaigners who fear this research could be used to commercially exploit users.
So keep in mind that just because you think you're not revealing a lot of personal details on Facebook, you're still spreading the word to the outside world as well as those online marketers.
Volunteers with few friends liked walking with your friend and randomly pushing them into someone or something. Hey, it's not their fault they don't have friends. Everyone they know keeps getting randomly pushed into traffic. High IQ corresponds to liking Mozart, science, and the Colbert Report.
Research indicated people who like Harley-Davidson motorbikes are generally of low IQ. We thought we'd better offer a right to reply.
I'd say our average customer is probably more intelligent than most, and we've certainly got a lot of customers who are, well, people from Cambridge University for a start.
A like on Facebook can reveal if you're a gay man. Yeah, especially if what you choose to like is penises. It's apparently true. That's my wife walking in. I'm like, oh! It's a joke.
Okay. By the way, don't be an idiot and think that if somebody clicked on Wicked the Musical that they're gay automatically, or they clicked on Harley Davidson and they're stupid automatically. Ironically, that would make you stupid.
So as you guys can see, those seemingly innocent digital footprints, and no one really likes penises on Facebook, are extremely revealing about a broad range of intimate psychodemographic traits. And now, if you've not been in the coma in the last 3 or 4 years, you would see that it's not just jokes. It's actually quite serious that this can be done. I'm sure you've heard about this company, and this is just one of many companies that were doing this kind of a similar thing. Hillary Clinton, by the way, spent 3 times more money than Donald Trump on services of companies like Cambridge Analytica. They worked for Ted Cruz, Trump, Brexit, and so on. And you know, the scandal was large enough that they even put Mark in a suit and flew him to the other side of the continent, where he was really shocked. He was so surprised that how is that possible that you can predict psychological traits from people's Facebook likes? Which is surprising that he was surprised, because of course this is essentially the idea behind Facebook. Observe someone's behavior, try to model this behavior, meaning extract the psychological traits, and try to predict what content, what ads are going to be most engaging for them. Not to mention that the very technology that I was warning against in my 2013 publication, and that Cambridge Analytica later used in their work for Trump, Brexit, and so on, was patented by Facebook back in 2012. So way before Cambridge Analytica people even graduated from high school. Okay, cool. So how does it work? All of those prediction models, I have a few more minutes left, so we should go through this equation easily. But before we do this, let me show you one practical example. Imagine you have an anonymous user. You know nothing about them, Facebook user. The only thing you know about them is that they like Hello Kitty. Now, what is the gender of this user, Bob? Females, so judgmental. In fact, the person that owns the largest collection of Hello Kitty toys is this retired Japanese gentleman. But actually, when you look at the stats, those are official stats published by Facebook, you can see that the 99% of people who liked Hello Kitty are females. So Rob is pretty accurate at his predictions so far. Okay, Bob, so is this person working for sales or for the military? For sales. Great, so judgmental and so accurate again. Now, do they use an iPhone or a PC? Great, they probably don't even know what PC stands for, those Hello Kitty fans. So as you guys can see, you do not need to be Cambridge Analytica to make extremely accurate predictions based on a single individual digital footprint that a person has left behind. And of course, in real life, those predictions are not that easy. If I told you that this anonymous user liked Forrest Gump, the movie, now when I ask you about the gender, this would be a much more difficult question, right? Because it's just the split is not that clear. But when you look at the stats, you can still see that whereas 45% of all Facebook users are males, 53% of people who liked Forrest Gump the movie are males, meaning that the fact that someone liked Forrest Gump is somewhat revealing about their gender, as well as all sorts of other intimate traits. And now algorithms are amazing at essentially combining those little seeds of information from a vast range of digital footprints in order to arrive at a very accurate prediction. Now, how accurate are those predictions? The video mentioned accuracies related to predicting gender, age, ethnicity, drugs that you're using, or whether your parents were together at 21 or not. But let us look at something more difficult, personality. It's one of the psychological traits or sets of traits which are famously difficult to predict, and we use long psychological questionnaires. People spend a lot of time, they cheat, they misrepresent. We are not that good at measuring personality. And it turns out that you can train the models based on Facebook likes that will allow you to predict people's scores on personality questionnaires with quite some accuracy. And what you can see here is how when you reveal more Facebook likes to a model, then the prediction accuracy will go up. And I can hear no wows from the audience, meaning we have 0 psychometricians in the audience, because this is really accurate. The accuracy is really high. And if you don't believe me, let me show you another example. Let's compare the accuracy of like-based predictions of personality with accuracy of another way of predicting personality, which is asking your friends and acquaintances about your personality. Now, if you know someone, you can anticipate their answer to questions such as, I like poetry, or I like being on time on the meetings, or I really love going out with my friends. You may say that, that's essentially a crux of knowing someone. So what we did here, we essentially took 60,000 people, we measured their personality using self-reported questionnaires, then we predicted their scores using Facebook likes, and then we also tried to ask their friends and family members and coworkers to fill in a personality questionnaire in their name, to try to anticipate the responses to questions such as, I like poetry. Okay, so how many Facebook likes do you need to reveal to an algorithm for an algorithm to be able to predict your answers to a personality questionnaire with the same accuracy as your work colleague? Say again? 10. How do you know? That's precisely 10. Amazing. Okay, friends and family members? 70, very close, between essentially 50 and 100. Now, the most accurate of human judges can be outperformed by an algorithm that has access to around 250 of your Facebook likes. Now, this should be at least really upsetting to all of us that have spouses, because spouses spend a lot of time with us, We have intimate conversations with them. They see us happy, they see us sad. We talk about philosophy and having children or not having children and so on. You know, if you got married recently, they still pay a lot of attention to you, and yet 250 likes of funny goats or whatever, videos of your cousin that you leave behind while using Facebook allows a simple equation predict your answers to questions such as I like poetry better than your own wife or husband. Okay, and the bottom line here is that the data that is visible on the surface, I liked a video of a funny cat or laughing goat, is just the tip of an iceberg. That when you combine this data with machine learning, relatively simple actually, machine learning algorithms, you can essentially uncover this huge, vast range of other intimate traits that you are not even aware that you're revealing. Moreover, some of those traits, some of those predictions are made for traits that you're not even aware that you have them. Now, when I say that, people say, oh, that's crazy. How can an algorithm know more about me that I know about myself? Well, it's actually very simple. You know, when you go to a doctor, they ask you about your symptoms. You upload few bytes of data by describing the symptoms, and then a doctor gives you information about yourself that you don't have yourself. Like, I'm sorry you're sick, or like everything is okay, it's fine, right? So they have information based on your data. The deep neural network in doctor's brain gave you some information about you that you did not have before. And now it turns out that very simple equation can do the same with higher accuracy for a much broader range of traits. Okay, so is anyone here in this room surprised by those findings? Thank you. Thanks. Well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't, of all people here. Of course, it's not surprising. We have been using algorithms to make decisions and predict the future with the superhuman accuracy for quite some time. Like, you know, with stock markets, we very well know that computers are outperforming us at making those predictions. And there are books written, such as this one, Clinical versus Statistical Prediction, where Paul Meehl shows over and over again that in a psychological context of clinical psychology, mechanical prediction will always outperform the clinical diagnosis. Now, when was this book published? 1954. This is not news, guys. And by the way, the mechanical prediction at that time was just, you know, equation with 4 coefficients. Okay, so what types of data can be used to reveal your intimate traits? Your history of geographical locations, your Facebook likes, your playlist, anything you say at home or around a smartphone or a smartwatch or whatnot. Anything you write. Now, this is just a screenshot from one of our studies showing you two word clouds with words most predictive of high openness and low openness to experience, a psychological trait highly related to political views. And it's not just happening in the lab. IBM Watson, for example, have been offering API allowing to translate samples of text into very detailed psychological profiles for over a decade at the moment. Now, what I'm really excited and interested and worried about at the moment is that it turns out that similar predictions can be made based on people's facial images, based on people's faces. Now, when I say that, people say, okay, now you went too far again. How can we predict anything about a person just by looking at their face? But wait, we're doing it all the time. Like age and gender. It's an intimate those are intimate psychodemographic traits, yet we have no trouble judging them accurately from people's faces. Emotions are intimate psychological states. We have no trouble judging it from people's faces, even when they try to hide the emotion they're experiencing. Now, genetic similarity. Genes are pretty personal, I would say, yet we can judge genetic similarity just by looking at people's faces. The same relates to a broad range of genetic disorders, developmental disorders, or political views. Which one of those guys voted for Trump? Right? So you will not be always accurate, but you're definitely going to be better than random, showing that essentially faces are revealing about your intimate traits and states. And this is because there are 3 sets of mechanisms that are linking your face with your psychological traits. First of all, your brain, your psychology is affecting your face. Like if you're a gregarious person, you laugh a lot, you will develop smile lines that are going to permanently change your facial appearance. But your facial appearance is also affecting your psychology. Like, for example, if you happen to be a nice, beautiful baby, studies show that moms and dads are going to smile more at you. Very unfair, but very true. Now, then you go to primary school, everyone wants to date you, everyone wants to hang out with you. You go to the college, everyone, again, wants to invite you to parties. You go to the job market, you get pay rise more easily, you get promoted more easily, you get forgiven mistakes more easily if you're beautiful. Now, this is going to affect your psychological traits over time. And there's actually a lot of evidence that beautiful babies grow into more extroverted adults because they're constantly rewarded for interacting with other people. And finally, there's a bunch of factors affecting both brains and humans' faces, such as genes. We know that many of the psychological traits are heritable. We know that facial features are heritable. Genetic disorders affecting both brains and faces. Hormones, both prenatal but also postnatal circulating hormones. For example, the level of testosterone, half of the audience, roughly, is suffering from overdosing testosterone on a daily basis, as clearly illustrated by the receding hairlines and different distribution of collagen under their skin. But the same overdosing of testosterone is making the same half of the audience behave differently, like being more arrogant and assertive and driving cars too fast and killing themselves by doing stupid things. And finally, there's a bunch of developmental factors that, again, affect both your face and your psychological traits. So essentially, the bottom line is that it would be an extraordinary claim to make that your faces should not be related to your psychological traits. Now, having said that, we are not that good at judging quite a few of the psychological traits from people's faces. Like, for example, extroversion, so how social and outgoing you are. What you can see here is images, facial images of 2 German psychologists, female psychologists. One of them is an extreme extrovert, one of them is an extreme introvert. So who here thinks that Sandra on the right is an extrovert? Hands up. Okay, a lot of hands. Who thinks that Sandrine here on the left is an extrovert? Hands up. Okay, again, a lot of hands. So I quickly calculated that you guys were correct 54% of the time, which is the same result that we achieve in the lab. People given this task are correct 54% of the time, which is Sandra, by the way, on the right is an extreme extrovert. Which means that you're guys better than random. There's some signal there, but there's also not that much signal, which can imply 2 things. One, maybe your face is just not that revealing about your extroversion. Or maybe your face is as revealing about your extroversion as it is revealing about your gender, but your brain just did not evolve a capacity to either perceive or interpret the signal. And let me prove to you that it's the latter. What you can see here, this is just showing that people are kind of accurate, but not that accurate. You can see 10 images of introverts and 10 images of extroverts overlaid on top of each other. Now, no one in this room will have trouble guessing which of those groups are extroverted, right? You can see smiling, not smiling, glasses, contact lenses, makeup, a better hairstyle. If you look at the larger image, the clothes are more revealing. You can also see that extroverts have no nostrils. Why would extroverts have no nostrils? Great, we have some extroverts in the room. If you were to remember just one thing from this talk, extroverts know how to take selfies. If you want to look good on your selfie, you need to do it like this. And then you have no nostrils. Whereas if you play your computer games and shoot the video from your camera, it's just not that nice. So essentially, there are clear differences there. And computers, in fact, this is just a computer dreaming about introverts and extroverts, computers can outperform humans at predicting psychological traits such as extroversion from people's faces by a lot. By the way, the accuracy achieved by a computer is comparable with the accuracy achieved by your work colleagues. So just by looking at your face, computer knows your personality, knows you as well as your work colleagues know you after spending however much you work in Switzerland, 5 hours a day for 5 days. Great. And it's not only those images from social media. What we've done here, we took 600 images, 600 people, we photographed them in the lab while removing their facial hair and makeup and hiding their hair and making them face the camera straight with neutral facial expression, and then try to teach a computer to distinguish between them. What you can see here is 2 groups of 20 males. One of those groups is politically conservative, another one is politically liberal. As you can see, they're kind of nearly the same. That's actually an interesting phenomenon. When you average 20 faces, they kind of always look roughly the same. Now, can you guess which one is which one? Who think that males on the right are politically conservative? Hands up. Who thinks people on the left, males on the left, are politically conservative? Hands up. Okay, there's majority on the left. You're right, guys. Like 70% of the people in the lab. Look, those faces look virtually identical. Some people, some audiences protest. They say, we will not be doing this guessing because this is the same face. It's not the same face. And yet there are 70% of the time they're right. And a computer, by the way, is in the 90s, looking at one single individual image. You can do the same for females. We don't have time for that. Again, there's... no, that doesn't sound well. I'm not invited next year. There are APIs out there that can do it for you on an industrial scale. And by the way, this is just a little screenshot of what I saw on my way in the morning here to this lecture hall. Science is what we understand well enough to explain to a computer. Art is everything else we do. Well, I did not explain to a computer how to distinguish between liberals and conservatives. Kind of learned just by observation. So this became outdated really quickly. Okay, and this is my title slide, actually. So the title of the talk is The End of Privacy. So I have 2 minutes, 40 seconds to actually go through my talk. So as in my long introduction to my actual talk, I tried to convince you guys that computers got really good at turning our digital footprints into very accurate predictions of our future behavior and our intimate traits. And we're also leaving a growing amount of digital footprints behind while using digital products and services, which is really quickly taking us to the post-privacy age. To which people say, well, wait a moment, GDPR, what about governments giving us control over our data and everything will be fine? Well, not so much. Even the government, as you will learn more later today, cannot really control their data that well. So what makes you so sure that you will have enough education, time, assets in order to make sure that a motivated third party will not be able to access your data? Not to mention that if we're really able to control our data very well, many of the wonderful modern technologies that our civilization, is just totally addicted to, and for good reasons, would stop working. If you manage to use Google Maps without revealing your own geographical location to the server, not only it will be technologically pretty difficult, but also it will be literally free riding on the backs of all of those other people that just shared their data. If you go to a doctor and say, well, please scan my DNA, please give me some, some diagnosis based on my genes, assess my risks, and then maybe craft some, DNA, personalized therapy for me, but don't share my data with anyone else. Don't upload it to the server. Well, that's just bloody selfish, right? You ride on the backs of other people sharing the data, but you will not share your data, right? Not cool. Not to mention that even if you're given full control over your data, we kill, much of the progress that is out there. We kill Google Maps, we kill Google search engine and so on. We still bunch of narcissists, and we're just going to share voluntarily enough data for even a half-witted algorithm to be able to learn a lot about us. To which many people say, well, who cares? Like, whatever. Then we just have no privacy left. And I would say not not that quick. You should care. What you can see here is two composite images made of 100 male faces each. Those males differ in terms of one very important psychodemographic trait. Anyone can guess? Sexual orientation. Great, thank you. You can see 100 gay faces, 100 male faces. Of course, it doesn't mean that if you have a beard, you're straight automatically, right? This is just amplifying the signal. The actual difference in the probability of wearing a beard is just tiny and not perceptible for a human eye. But a computer can spot those regularities, and a standard, widely used facial recognition algorithm that you have in your phone can essentially detect your sexual orientation with an accuracy of over 90% if you're a male, slightly less if you're a female. Now, if you combine this with this map showing where a government or a society is going to kill you if they found out you're gay, it's kind of making my point clear that losing our privacy might be, making you a bit uncomfortable in Switzerland, but it's a matter of life and death for many people around the world. And I have just this dramatic last slide here, and I'm opening for questions. A tornado. Like, we can all here agree that tornadoes are bad, and that we should make them illegal. And guess what? Just won't stop them from coming. It's the same with us losing our privacy. We can all agree that it's just bad, makes me certainly feel uncomfortable. This is why I spend a lot of my time studying risks to privacy, because I was hoping for many years that maybe if we understand those risks to privacy, we'll be able to stop the erosion of privacy and get our privacy back. But the more I know about this, the more I'm convinced that essentially we lost this war, and that privacy is going to be taken away from us. So instead of focusing on trying to legislate tornadoes out of existence, we should rather focus on trying to figure out how to make sure that this post-privacy world is still an habitable and safe place to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michal. Of course, I did not take a seat. Of course, I did not imply that you were not a piece of beauty. In fact, I liked your Facebook profile a long time ago. So we have about 10 minutes for a little bit of a fireside chat, I guess. We can take the orange letters as symbolizing a fireplace. I would like to, with my first question, I would like to get back to this map that you had, where the map where homosexuality is illegal. In some places there is a death penalty. There was Saudi Arabia, for example. I'm wondering if this system would just be self-regulating, because if the software figures out that the Sheikh of Saudi Arabia is actually gay, then he would maybe he would not promote that software. So in the long run, could it just figure itself out?
I completely agree with you. There's actually a promise. So I'm kind of spending a lot of time warning people against the risks to privacy and the consequences of losing privacy. But I kind of have hope, in a way, like I think that we cannot change it. So I'm trying to look for the upsides. And I think we should be focusing on managing the risks. And the upside of us losing privacy, for example, is the fact that we are all in it together. That if tomorrow morning everyone in Saudi Arabia woke up with the sexual orientation written on their forehead, it will turn out that 7% of the army, probably 20% of the clerics, and a lot of royal family are gay as well. And that would definitely change the discourse that this society is having. And we've seen this happen before. So Harvey Milk in America, a gay rights activist, he argued that if you can afford coming out and losing your privacy, you actually have a duty to lose your privacy, because then you will pay the price, but you can afford it, and you pave the way for the future generations. And Harvey Milk paid the highest price, but on his back of his sacrifice, you could see how the world has changed in the last 20 years. I wanted to add one other thing to it, which is people often say, well, there's homophobia. This is not that easy. There's homophobia. We should really grant gay people privacy. And I agree with this. I just see that it's impossible, essentially, or it's going to be very impossible in a very short time. But I'm also seeing one other thing. Look, guys, the solution to homophobia is not privacy. It's like saying, solution to sexism is privacy. Let's give women ability to hide their gender, and we solve the problem of sexism, we can move on. This is inhumane. First of all, it's very difficult, and second of all, why would you want women to hide their gender instead of solving the actual problem? The problem of sexism is not lack of privacy of gender. The problem of sexism is sexism. And we should solve it, and we should treat essentially homophobia in the same way. There's no hiding our head in the sand anymore.
So a bit of a silver lining. I want to dwell a bit more on a positive view for a change. So if computers are so good at kind of figuring us out and helping us maybe change the Cambridge Analytica thing, that it went one step further. Instead of just predicting what you like, it could also change your behavior, right? Like nudge you a bit maybe into voting this side than the other. Can this be turned into something positive? So can computers help me, help us stop smoking or become more punctual, get up on time? Are there these positive sides also?
Or make us better informed, or make us more interested in culture and make it more approachable and accessible, or make our lives more meaningful and connected? Of course they can, and of course they do. And and again, like I'm a bit of a, I understand that I'm a bit of a, whatever you call it, fear-mongering here a bit on the stage, but I'm actually extremely optimistic and extremely positive about technology. I think that we are overcorrecting now. Like, people are panicking about Facebook destroying our democracy and what has Facebook ever done for us, and Google, and we should now have Facebook hire censors to censor what you or I can post online. Guys, I was born behind Iron Curtain, and the idea of a government censoring stuff is I'm pretty allergic to, but the idea of a private profit-driven company getting a mandate from the society to hire 13,000 censors to essentially decide on what's okay to be published online and what's not absolutely blows my mind. Do you guys forgot about, you know, Soviet Union and what's happening in Cuba today as well? Like, it just blows my mind. And don't forget that the same Facebook that has radicalized few people, absolutely no question about this. The same Google that helped few people find out how to, whatever, build a bomb or poison someone or whatnot, or how to join ISIS. The same technology for each person that got radicalized. There are hundreds of thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who got brought closer to the center. And if you demand evidence for that, take any representative study of the population. Any representative study of the population, like the ones run by Pew Research Center in the US or the ones run in the European Union, show that with every year, the societies are becoming more liberal, more progressive, less polarized, and this especially applies to those parts of demographics that are most exposed to social media, search engines, and so on. What social media has done to us, what Twitter has done to us, it has not created extremism. It has just made extremism more visible. It's like I came up, if I actually did something useful in life and came up with a machine that can diagnose cancer with much higher accuracy. Guess what would happen? Tomorrow, you would see many more cases of cancer. Does it mean that this machine somehow is creating cancer? Of course not. Quite the opposite. It's just that our diagnosis got better.
So you're kind of questioning this kind of paper that is now very hot to publish in Nature and Science about radicalization and how there are filter bubbles.
Of course there are filter bubbles, because we always were living in an echo chamber and filter bubble. You know, in the past, people in the Soviet Union were living in one bubble, in America in another bubble. You lived in a big city, you lived in a bubble. You lived in a small countryside, town, you lived in a bubble. Confirmation bias. Human brain is designed in such a way you cannot know everything. So you're always in some form of a bubble. But the real question is, has the problem of information bubbles gotten worse over the last 5 months, 5 years, 50 years? And the answer is absolutely not. We are the best informed and the best connected people that have ever walked the surface of this planet. And what's happening is that people are constantly knocking at your bubble from the outside. In the past, you graduated from high school, someone became a farmer, another one became a lawyer, they kind of lost connection. today you're still connected on Facebook, and from time to time you will see some of your old friends posting something completely outlandish and crazy, and it's like, oh my God, I'm in a bubble. Well, yes, you're in the bubble, but you can see the bubble today, and you couldn't see 15 years ago because we were just surrounded by exactly clones of psychological clones of you. It doesn't mean that your bubble is getting narrower, it's just meaning that your bubble is being stretched all the time, which is good. But in the process of stretching, it's becoming really conspicuous. So kind of you perceive the problem more than in the past. Diagnosis, again, like better diagnosis.
So by being exposed to all the bogus on the internet, maybe we become a bit more tolerant that way.
Oh,
like,
we are. We're the most tolerant society also that ever lived.
Maybe an example is that Trump can get away with anything. We tolerate that. So maybe it's a good sign. Since you mentioned the Iron Curtain and the Soviet Union and so on, maybe we can bring up the question of the bomb, and ethics. You kind of, there's this question of if you showed that it's possible to build the bomb, right? You developed these statistical models that could infer personality traits from Facebook behavior. You didn't light the bomb, but others did. So where is this? Do you feel bad about doing it? Do you have second thoughts? If you could go back, would you not do this kind of research? Or do you say, no, we need to do this, we need to be aware that it's possible, and then we figure it out?
I think that it's very bad to be building bombs, and I didn't build a bomb. I took technology that has been patented by Facebook and has been already widely used back in early 2000s and in 2010 for sure. Obama was essentially pioneer of Cambridge Analytica technology. Many people working for Cambridge Analytica got their experience at Obama's campaign. So those technologies were out there already. But the problem was that no one was really talking in a society about how potent those technologies are. And what are the risks related to those technologies. So I essentially started focusing on trying, with my scientific scholarly work, trying to emphasize what are the potential benefits, but also potential risks of those technologies being deployed. Now, I think I was somewhat successful, as you maybe seen in the video, for example, or the press coverage that was there at the time, at making people aware that those technologies exist. But the problem, of course, with making people aware, as any messenger in the history has always discovered, is that by making people aware of something, you naturally become a scapegoat for, becoming blamed for it. So yeah, I had a policeman stationed on my corridor at the university. I got, death threats. I got used to death threats. You kind of can't really upset me with a death threat anymore. You have to be really creative. I seen them all, but it's just misunderstanding. Like I never created any of those technologies. I'm taking widely used technologies and trying to educate the public in the very same way as the journalists that criticize me. I'm trying to educate the public about their negative and positive potential.
Absolvo te peccatis tuis.
Thank you.
Really. Okay, so we're out of time, but maybe we can, there's one more question that I'd like to ask. Can you give us an outlook, like summarize your nightmare scenario and your dream scenario of the consequences of this? And since we're nearly out of time, maybe we can make this in the form of, and since it's all about social media here, maybe we can make this in the form of 2 tweets. You can send 1 tweet about your nightmare scenario that follows from this, and 1 tweet about your
okay, nightmare scenario would be finally Facebook and Google got what they needed and we switched them off. It would be a nightmare scenario, and we are doing it slowly, by the way, in many ways. The positive scenario would be, more of what we have now. Come on, guys, it's just the best time to be alive. And if tomorrow is as much better than today, as today is better than yesterday was, I think we're on a great track to a bright future.
I like that. Thank you very much. That's great.